Welcome everybody. Another week back here with the MyPITBOARD gang, and holy crap, what a race that was this past weekend. Track was gnarly, riders were gnarly, Anderson was going crazy, Freeze was getting hit in the head. Who could have asked for anything better? That was crazy. So yeah, MyPITBOARD team back here again. I'm Kibby, I'm the founder of MyPITBOARD, and we got
I'm Ev, brand specialist.
Hello, Tyler Medaglia back again. Crash test dummy, and we'll get right into it and keep it nice and short this time.
Yeah. So big change for this week. Another one. Try to nail these episodes down, make it more engaging for you guys. So we're gonna shorten it. This is like the Christmas miracle to get to 10 minutes, and that's what we're shooting for. So hopefully we can get that today. But let's get right into it. So with that being said, Tyler, lead us off with the track. What did you think about the track this week?
Yeah, it was a super busy track. Just like jumps and rhythms all over the place. They another sand section which played. I think those sand sections should be at every round. I know the riders don't really like them, and well, some don't. I think it'd be sick to have a sand section in every one, but they originally were supposed to have two sets of whoops. One got dozed out and put into a regular stadium triple. But, it's kind of, on one hand, it's like, yeah, it was, it sucks that they took two sets of whoops out, because that would have been, even more gnarly for such a busy track. But at the same time, I'd imagine most of the riders probably appreciated it, with long lap times, and yeah, it would have been a long, grueling race for sure.
Quick note is that one thing that finally I like that Ricky really said was the difference between the baseball stadiums and the football fields. In the football fields, you get more of these up and down lanes, 180 turns, but I feel like they can be much more creative in these baseball diamonds. Just there's so much more room to do cool stuff. So it's super cool when they can have a sweet layout like this, and it makes for some really fun racing to watch, which I think is what we just got out. So with that being said, we should move into our next point, which is looking at the top 3 lap times. So how about in 30 seconds or less, let's talk about the top 3. What are you guys' takeaways on that? Someone take it away.
Yeah, Tomac was definitely on another level this week. I think we were all a bit surprised. We all had Anderson picked out as a winner this week, and he was riding super good. Like he's very close. He was right there, but Tomac, he was just right there. And Sexton was a bit more laid back than what we saw last weekend, but it made for super interesting racing, and there was a bunch of passes in the race because all the fast guys were like not in the top on the start, so it made for super interesting racing for sure.
T?
Yeah. I mean, it was another great race. I mean, Kenny getting out front, kind of thought that we were going to see him run away. Typically what he does, but he's Anderson's just been bulldozing him out of the way. So yeah, and then Tomac even mentioned that he had another half decent start. So yeah, he's on a roll, and I think he's going to be tough to beat. And yeah, I think looking at the first slide, you can see like him, Anderson, and Sexton are kind of breaking away right now.
Yeah, the top 3 lap times are definitely super close. You can see it changes every lap with who's the fastest, and maybe you see it right there. But what set Tomac apart was maybe that he didn't make any significant mistake, which you can see that Anderson did on lap 8, and that Sexton did on lap 13. So I think maybe that was the point that really gave them a bit more of a gap this week. But all the lap times are super close, and definitely like it makes for a very challenging race because they're all so close. So really depends on who starts first and just who can keep the mistakes to a minimum.
Tomac said that he's been pretty vocal about talking about his starts and how they have worked on it, which is really the only thing that was holding him back, I think. But he just seems so confident, so happy, so like he doesn't seem as uptight. I think he's in a really good place with that bike. But what was interesting to me is if you looked at, and even on the broadcast, you could kind of see it where towards the end of the race, you could see Anderson just kind of creeping up. He was getting close to he was closing in on him. You see those 3 lap times at around lap 15, 16, and 17.
Yeah.
He closed the gap in, and then it looked like we were going to get, a battle down to the end. And that's on a gnarly track like that. It was kind of surprising. I was, questioning whether Anderson has that final push in him, and he clearly does.
Yeah, for sure. Those are long motos on the rough track. So to see them battle out even at the end of a moto like that, it's very impressive.
Look at the inconsistency though in Anderson. Like he was kind of all over the place, and even just watching him this weekend too. Like so much aggression, so much speed, so awesome to watch. But the heat race, oh my God, like what was happening there, right? Like I don't know, something just wasn't gelling. Like that bike looked just so stiff and it didn't want to go where he wanted. Like the bike wasn't going where he wanted it to go. But then they obviously did some work and it looked a lot better going into the main. But oh my gosh. But you can definitely see in the lap times, like it was really hard for him to stay consistent. Do you think that was a bike thing, or was that just because he was just riding so aggressive, wanted it, and was just like letting it all hang out?
I think that he was riding aggressive. I mean, obviously he gave McElrath the finger mid rhythm section. They hit that wall jump side by side, which was cool that they added another different sort of feature this weekend that we haven't really seen too much. But yeah, and then what he did to Kenny is just he was just a wrecking ball.
Yeah, I think it was just maybe a bit too much for him. I think he must have put so much pressure on himself after last weekend and his win. And he came in and, like you said, he was all over the place in the heat race. And as you can see with the lap times, he was kind of a bit still all over the place during the main. So I think, he was putting a lot of pressure on himself and stuff.
It's interesting to look at just the lap times here. Sexton looked a little bit off the pace. I thought he was going to be able to bring more to the table and be able to close these guys in a little bit better, but it didn't really seem like that. It looked like he was about 0.5 seconds off the entire, for most of the moto anyways, obviously minus a couple of the laps. But what did you guys think just quickly out of Sexton here?
It was a mature ride from him. That's what, that's the type of ride that he needs to be doing right now. And he moved into second in the points, and his just going back to the same points of him being his starts are good, his form is really good, and now he's starting to put this thing together, and I think he's going to be these 3 guys are going to be the ones to watch moving forward, I think, until I think maybe Webb gets his stuff together and when they get that bike a little bit better.
So speaking of that, sorry, go ahead, Evan.
No, I was just going to say
point.
I was just going to say, I think this weekend we saw a bit more maturity out of Chase Sexton. He was a bit more, consistent, and he wasn't, super close to the top 2 guys, but he kind of kept it chill and mellow and didn't go all crazy to try to catch back up to them, which I think showed a bit more maturity than what we saw earlier in the season. So I think it's like you said, he moved up to second in points by being more intelligent than, nuts. So I think that's definitely going to pay moving forward.
Okay, let's jump into the next timing slide here. We got Anderson versus Tomac. So honing in on a little bit of the data. I know we just talked about it, but it's interesting to see it side by side. I mean, Tomac was definitely more consistent on average on his lap times compared to Anderson, as we were just saying. But where do you think this is going to be a pattern that we're going to see in the future where Anderson's going to be more inconsistent? I mean, we've been seeing this in the data in the past. Like Tomac just looks so good. I feel like he's going to be able to maintain that consistency, but what do you guys think?
Tomac could be he could be just as inconsistent though. You watch him, they have some raw videos of him riding in press day, or even in his qualifier where it was kind of quiet. You could hear where he comes in and he's got the clutch in and the bike is wide open. Like he rides really aggressive, so that kind of opens you up. It's not like Sexton or Kenny where they're just rolling through and carrying momentum with low RPMs and stuff. It's different. It's more aggressive, and that kind of opens it up for little mistakes here and there that can alter your consistency, but your high end speed is your ceiling is higher for the top end speed. So and these two guys have similar riding styles, I think, in that way. So I just think this is going to keep going. It's going to be great to follow.
All right, let's get into the next slide here. So let's get Ferrandis in the mix. What did you guys think about Ferrandis here? So just quickly in the times, it looks like he was kind of, he was sort of on pace in the early stage of the race, but kind of tailored off. Quick thoughts.
I think it's surprising to see like how close his lap times are for most laps for how far he seemed like racing wise. Like I don't think we saw him in the mix so much yesterday. And you think of that and then you see the lap times and you're like, wow, he was pretty close for the whole race. So like why was he not like there? Why was he not battling with those guys? Yeah, I'm a bit surprised to be honest.
Yeah, his corner speed is really good. He rides that. He's riding those rutted turns like he's probably the best one out there at railing those ruts like an outdoor track. So yeah, I mean he just keeps saying it. It's war. He mentions it in his interviews, and yeah, like there's so many of these guys that those lap times are just like that. That big clumps of the within half a second, and yeah, it's just a war for these guys, and he's gonna once he gets his start sorted, and if he ever does, I mean history has repeated itself here with that, but I think he's gonna be right up there with those guys in the mix. I'm hoping he gets a win, so that way we can keep this new winners thing going. That's pretty fun.
Just kind of honing in on the data here, through laps 7 to 12, that gap really grew, as Ev, you were saying. I mean, he was at least a second off each lap, which really pushed the lead group away from where he was. And so he's got to try and, hone that in, because that's a pretty big gap. And, lap times like this, that being so close, you need to be within, like, there's not that much margin for error here and to be on the podium. And it seems like that margin here is 1 second a lap, obviously, right?
Yeah.
That stuff compounds pretty big if that's maintained. So obviously he was able to trim the gap a little bit, but still, being more consistent. It looked like in the mid stages of the motos, which really killed him and grew that gap.
Yeah, those four lap times right dead center in the middle of the screen there, like that's a big, that's a huge gap. That's a visible gap, and then you lose that, and then it doesn't really matter how fast you are at the last few laps. They're out of sight, out of mind, really.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's get into the next one. What we got next? Okay, let's so Roczen, Sexton, and Anderson. Sexton was looking really good. Didn't quite have that consistency there. A couple of bobbles here and there. Roczen was pretty quick off the get-go. Anderson took him out, totally killed the wind. Looked like he was just kind of cruising around after, not really doing too much. Thoughts on this one, guys?
I'm not sure. Maybe, I don't think it was like he was cruising for a lack of effort, but at some point, it's 2 weekends in a row with the same guy. It must kind of feel like agonizing and, very discouraging. So maybe, that kind of played a part, but he spent so long just stuck to the back of the pack, like he, I watched, it must have been like 3 or 4 laps after he fell, and I looked and he was still in 17. So, I think maybe he must have caught sometimes you get behind a rider and you kind of just get into his pace and you start following his pace and you kind of catch his speed. So, maybe he was shaking up a bit after his crash and kind of gutted, and he just stuck to the pace of the guys he was around. And then at some point he realized he had to go a bit quicker, which we saw we see in a few laps, but I think he was keeping it pretty consistent and just trying to stay on 2 wheels and stay out of trouble in that one.
I think he definitely just needs to be he needs to start getting himself more aggressive with these guys. I think Anderson, kind of seen what Webb did to him, and I don't know. It just seems like they're pushing him around a little bit. He's riding a little bit stiff, That's just, my personal opinion, but yeah, it'd be, hopefully he can get a little bit more aggressive with these guys and just not get pushed around so much. But yeah,
I would second the stiffness thing. In the first couple laps where he was leading, he didn't really look like his normal self. Okay, but let's get into the next one, the big three. So I'm going to call this the old big three. Looking from last year, it was Roczen, Webb, Tomac. As we said in the first slide, this year it's looking like it's going to be a Tomac, Sexton, Anderson kind of deal.
Yeah.
So I think just the main point is we already talked about Roczen. Talk about Webb here. What's going on with Webb? We know Webb can turn it on halfway through the season. What's going on?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. I mean, I think, well, I mean, honestly, he's made mention to it being that, they're even going back to old settings from his old bike. So I think he's being pretty open with figuring out this new chassis. Who knows? Maybe this, they designed this bike a little bit more for hurlings and the GP guys, so it's a bit more stable and not as knifey as the making up words, but yeah, as nimble as the old chassis. So yeah, I think he's still really consistent. He doesn't have that top end speed right now, and he really never does. He's just more of a game time rider. I just with, again, he's just gonna have to nail those starts and yeah, and then wait, I don't know, until they get the bike a bit better, and hopefully do that mind games sort of chess game with Eli and these guys again.
Yeah, and it must kind of play into your mind at some point. When you ride on these sort of tracks, you have to trust your bike 100%, 120% even. You've got to know it's going to react the way you want to. It's going to move the way you want to. And with the new bike, if that's not the case, then it's got to affect how much he moves that bike and how much he trusts that bike. And that's going to affect the result. You won't, you can't feel comfortable pushing 130% if you don't know what the bike's going to do. And I think we saw it in that corner where the bike, he pushed the front end a bit too hard and he just slipped and fell. I think at that point he had trust in the bike and the bike just did not cooperate. So that's gotta it's got to feel awful, and it's definitely going to have an impact on your racing and how much you push and your aggressiveness.
Yeah. Got to figure something out. Looking at the data there, he was on average 2 seconds off Tomac's pace almost every lap. Yeah. Like the lowest, the lowest difference was 1 second, which was really bad. So got to figure something out there. But okay, we went a little bit over this 10-minute miracle, so let's try and just wrap things up right here. So predictions going into next week, just top three, everyone, and then we'll cut it off there pretty quick, faster than every other episode. So, Tease, take it away.
I'm going to go. You know what? I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Sexton because it's a triple crown, and his starts are the most consistent. So I'm going to go Sexton.
Ev is frozen and she looks like she's
taking a little nap.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
She kicked her ass. She kicked her ass in the predictions, and now she's going off into prediction land.
This is hysterical. I couldn't have been a better friggin' freeze frame. Oh, she's gone. Okay, well, I guess I'll just get into mine. So yeah, I didn't know it was a triple crown. Holy crap. If it's not, if it hasn't been exciting already, the Triple Crown is going to be even more exciting. So it's about who's consistent. So I'll go with you on that one. Sexton, I think, is going to take the win away. But I think Anderson will. I don't know. It's going to be a toss between Sexton and Anderson because Anderson's pretty good and aggressive at getting those passes in where it's needed. Oh, nice to see you woke up, Ev.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. The graces of technology.
Okay, I'm going to finish my predictions quick. So I'm going to go Sexton. No, screw that. Anderson, Sexton, and then who's probably the most aggressive one? I think I'm still going to stick with Webb as my P3. It's a shot in the dark, but I don't know. Maybe Webb's going to figure something out. Ev, your predictions.
I'm gonna go with Sexton, Tomac, and Anderson.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in this week. We cut the time down, not to where we wanted, but it's been great. We're so excited for the Triple Crown next week. Again, like, subscribe, leave a comment if you guys have any questions or feedback, or go check us out at mypitboard.com. Appreciate it so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.